It's that time of the year when the weather moves from chilly to freezing and the temperature inside moves from chilly to bone chilling. Halloween is here. You'll likely want to spend more time indoors now that the seasons have changed. So join us as we give you a couple of reasons to, with a list of horrors you simply must watch this Halloween. First up, setting the scene. There is absolutely no joy that compares to curling up on the couch with a proper dyed-in-the-wool horror movie. While the weather is freezing outside, it will push your heart rate into the stratosphere, and this will elevate your body temperature. Or so the theory goes, but then we know some of these creepers will make you shiver, no matter how much you turn up the heat in the room. Then, there are the movies that amplify the freeze outside by using the cold as a backdrop, or to motivate the plot, or in extreme cases, as a character. So we've selected a couple of features that play with cold as a theme. The on-screen iciness is so frightening, you'll reach for an extra blanket. And here we go. Number 1 is The Thing, 1982. If the cold frightens you, The Thing, a 1982 hit by John Carpenter, is set in the Arctic. It doesn't get chillier than that, right? The research facility in which the story takes place is so absolutely freezing. Residents stay in layers of sweaters and parkas even when they're working indoors. When a shape-shifting alien invades their research habitat in this remote outpost, their choices are limited to 2. 1, risk going outside and freezing to death, or 2, stay inside and find, and then face, the beast. The story is great, and it's frightening as all hell, but it's the nihilistic ending that underlines the terror this film is capable of unleashing. The Thing will scare you in spring, summer, and fall, but it will make your hair stand on end in winter. That's a promise. Coming up, a Stanley Kubrick and Jack Nicholson classic. Keep watching. Next, we go to 1980. For The Shining. Winter is off-season at the Overlook Hotel, and Wendy Torrance keeps the temperatures toasty inside because her family lives there. In the winter, they're completely isolated. Okay, that should already start to set the scene for you. This horror creates an unusual vibe. The landscape surrounding the Overlook is humongous. You can imagine white wilderness as far as the eye can see, almost like at the North Pole. But while the setting has this feeling of enormity, the whole story makes it feel claustrophobic, and this is scary. The thrill temperature of the film drops way below 0 as the plot unfolds, and reaches the iconic climax when an insane dad goes after his son with an axe through a hedge maze at night in a severe blizzard. It just doesn't get much better than that. While some horror aficionados will argue that Wendy and Danny Torrance were saved by the snowplow at the end of the film, others will tell you the father was done in by the cold. We're sure the winter cold may inspire you to revisit The Shining this year. And if it doesn't, remember that Mike Flanagan released Stephen King's Dr. Sleep in 2020. And this follow-up tracks Danny's story as a grown-up man, played by Ewan McGregor, while he struggles to recover from the trauma he lived through as a kid in The Shining. And now, Frozen, 2010. True terror often resides in the nooks and crannies of pure simplicity, and Frozen is a film that exploits that to the outer limits. 3 mates are stuck on a ski lift, and the resort they're skiing at has closed early for a long weekend. That's the plot. This terrifying film has no psychopaths with mommy or daddy issues hunting innocents, no cryptids, and it's entirely void of ghosts. There are no action-packed flashbacks explaining backstories that aren't relevant, and no horrifying foreshadowing that gives clues to the ending. It's just pure fear and terror. This simple premise Frozen employs gives viewers a glimpse into the raw banality of evil and nature's indifference to man, probably last seen in Moby Dick. So if you're in the habit of relating simplicity simplicity to boredom, don't. There is absolutely nothing mundane about Frozen. It journeys with the protagonist from a state of disbelief to stunned and frenzied desperation, and it touches on every emotional horror in between. There's the sudden risk that any bodily injury, no matter how small, could suddenly be fatal. And then there is the appetite of a pack of ravenous wolves to contend with too. Everything in Frozen is a frantic bid for survival, but the story unfolds with a slow burn intensity. This combination, set against the frigid atmosphere, makes this a horror among horrors. In a moment, we travel to Russia's Devil's Pass. Stay with us. Also, you should give Wind Chill 2007 a whirl. Frozen, as we've just said, finds its scary bits in the cracks within its simplicity. Wind Chill is less straightforward. In fact, it is downright deceptive, and the plot takes a whole array of unexpected turns. It really is edge-of-your-seat stuff. Do you want a real-life nightmare? We can help. Just think about being stranded in a vehicle on an isolated road during a whiteout that doesn't seem to want to end. That should do it. That is what Wind Chill uses to magnificent effect. But it has more, much more. The plot is built in a way that has us wondering about the driver's intentions to the approaching rescuers. If you've seen Wind Chill before, now may be the time to see it again. Emily Blunt was a newcomer back in 2007, and in this film, she's a college student whose holiday ride home descends into a chilling fiasco. The film also reminds me of a time before Uber and Lyft, when accepting rides from strangers was the only way to rideshare. And go to the Ural Mountains with 2013's Devil's Pass. It's called Russia's version of Area 51, and if you haven't heard of it, no one will blame you. It's hidden away in a remote corner of the Ural Mountains, and locals there continually report sightings of everything from cryptids to UFOs. In Russian, it's called the Dyatlov Pass, and there was an incident where 9 hikers died mysteriously back in 1959. Devil's Pass takes on the style of a mockumentary, mixed with a found footage horror film, with a dash of sci-fi spookery thrown in for good measure. The terror trifecta, so to speak. The story tells of a group of grad students from the United States who go on a quest to get to the bottom of the age-old mysteries surrounding the Dyatlov Pass. The story includes well-grounded theories of the 1959 disappearance too, so that adds a sense of realism to everything. That said, the film doesn't steer clear of the absolutely fantastic either. The standard found footage escapade is usually full of bad special effects and wonky production values. Not Devil's Pass, however, not by a long shot. This film will have you shifting around your seat for the entire duration. Stephen King can imagine horror like no one else. Stay with us for one of his more terrifying stories. Also, Snowpiercer 2013. This is a dystopian horror that takes place in the fairly near future. The planet's climate has become similar to an ice age, so much so that if you venture outside, a minute of exposure is likely to kill you. Survivors have made a train their home, and they have to move all the time to make sure they don't freeze solid. Poverty-stricken, hungry, dirty masses are cramped into the compartments in the back of the train. Snowpiercer warns about the dangers of climate change and also delivers a stinging commentary on the disparities of the class system of the world. The film was written and directed by Joon-ho Bong and starred Jamie Bell, Tilda Swinton, Chris Evans, Ed Harris, and John Hurt. And with a cast like that, it's certainly worth a view if you haven't seen it yet. Then, 2003's Dreamcatcher. Stephen King has a thing for the cold. There's Misery, Storm of the Century, The Mist, and The Shining, just to name a handful. None of them, however, packs the horror punch of Dreamcatcher. Childhood friends get together at a cozy cabin deep in the New England woods, but a bunch of bad guys invade their safe haven, sending them out into the freeze. And all of that happens in the face of a full-blown alien invasion. And the way the film was shot will make you feel cold, right into the marrow of your bones. And finally, there's 30 Days of Night, a vampire freeze from 2007. Okay, so this film is set in Alaska. It was always going to be freezing. There's a remote village, and the story unfolds here when winter is at its coldest. At this time of the year, one whole month goes by without any sunlight whatsoever. A clan of bloodsuckers descends on the little town, and the village folk have to make a stand to try to outlast the vampires until the sun comes up again. If you love vampires, this is a must see. Director David Slade's vamps are some of the scariest ever to hit the screen. They're feral, animalistic, and ruled by an ancient vampire with the attitude of a Russian gangster. The pace of the film is perfect, the cast shines, and the script is all snap, crackle, and pop. It will have you gasping for breath all the way to the conclusion, which will make you feel invincible and break your heart at the same time. That's it for this spine-chilling ride, folks. Enjoy Halloween and keep your eyes open for our next upload.